The entire Black Forest pack has assembled in the sacred grove, nearly 400 wolves in their human forms arranged in concentric circles around the massive bonfire that crackles and dances toward the heavens. The flames cast shifting shadows across faces marked by anticipation and reverence. For tonight is no ordinary ceremony. Tonight, their young alpha leader will discover his destined mate, the one chosen by the moon goddess herself to stand beside him and help guide their people into a new era of strength and prosperity. At the center of it all stands Kairos Veron, alpha heir whose very presence seems to bend the air around him with barely contained power. He is magnificent in the way that all great alphas are tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that seems to absorb the firelight and eyes like polished obsidian that miss nothing. His features are sharp and aristocratic, speaking of generations of pure alpha bloodline. And when he moves, it's with the fluid grace of a born predator who has never known defeat. The pack looks to him not just with respect, but with the kind of awe reserved for those destined to reshape the world according to their will. But there's something cold about Kairos, something that has always made those around him feel like prey being studied by a hunter. His ambitions are well known throughout the territory. He doesn't just want to lead the Black Forest pack. He wants to expand their influence, to conquer the neighboring communities and establish a werewolf empire built on the superiority of pure alpha bloodlines. His vision of strength is absolute, uncompromising, and utterly ruthless toward anything he perceives as weakness. At the edge of the gathering, partially hidden in the shadows cast by the ancient trees, stands Alter Lien. At 25, he possesses a beauty that sets him apart from every other Omega in their territory, and perhaps in any territory. His hair is the color of moonbeams on fresh snow, so silver it seems to glow with its own inner light, and his eyes are the pale blue of winter ice, clear and sharp and utterly fearless. But it's not just his unusual coloring that makes him remarkable. There's something in the way he carries himself, in the straight line of his spine and the direct way he meets the gaze of alphas who expect submission, that speaks of a pride that has never been broken. Alter is unique in ways that go far beyond his striking appearance. He possesses one of the rarest gifts known to werewolf-kind, pheromones of the moon whisper variety, a phenomenon that occurs perhaps once in a generation and marks an Omega as touched by the moon goddess herself. These pheromones don't just signal fertility or availability like those of common Omegas. They carry within them the power to calm the most savage beast, to heal psychological wounds that have festered for years, to inspire loyalty and devotion that transcends the usual pack bonds. But Alter's gift comes with a burden that has shaped every day of his life. Alphas from across the continent have tried to claim him, to add his rare pheromones to their bloodlines like a prize to be won. He has been courted, threatened, bargained for, and pursued by wolves who see him not as a person but as a strategic advantage. Through it all, he has maintained his dignity and his independence, refusing every advance with a polite but unmistakable firmness that has earned him both admiration and resentment. The pack elder raises his gnarled staff, and the assembled wolves fall into expectant silence. His voice carries the weight of centuries as he speaks the ritual words that have been unchanged since the founding of their pack. Tonight, under the blessing of the full moon, the goddess will reveal the bonds that unite soul to soul. Let those called by fate step forward and claim their eternal destiny. Let the worthy be joined in power, and let the bloodlines be strengthened by divine will. Alter feels something stir in his chest, a pulling sensation that grows stronger with each passing moment. Around the circle, other wolves are beginning to move, drawn by invisible threads toward their destined partners. The air is thick with anticipation, with the electric charge that comes when destiny is about to be fulfilled. But as the pull grows stronger, Alter realizes with growing dread exactly where it's leading him. The invisible thread of fate is drawing him inexorably toward the center of the circle, toward Kairos. The realization hits him like a physical blow. Of all the alphas in their territory, of all the possible matches the moon goddess could have chosen, his fated mate is the one wolf whose vision of strength and leadership he has always found abhorrent. The irony is almost too bitter to bear. The Omega who has spent his life refusing to be claimed by those who would use him, bound by fate to the Alpha who represents everything he despises about pack hierarchy and the worship of power above all else. But the pull is undeniable, growing stronger with each heartbeat until he can feel it in his bones, in the very essence of his being. The silver thread of their bond becomes visible in the moonlight, stretching between them like spun starlight. This is the moment that will define the rest of his life, the moment when everything changes whether he wants it to or not. Alter takes a step forward, then another, his bare feet silent on the soft earth. He can feel the eyes of the entire pack upon him, can sense their shock and excitement as they realize what's happening. The moon whisper Omega, the prize that so many have sought to claim, walking toward their alpha as if pulled by destiny itself. Karos's eyes find his across the fire, and for a moment, Alter sees something flicker in those obsidian depths: surprise, perhaps even calculation. The alpha's gaze travels over him with the assessing look of someone evaluating a potential acquisition, taking in his silver hair, his ice-blue eyes, the unconscious grace with which he moves. But there's no warmth in that examination, no recognition of him as anything more than a particularly valuable breeding prospect. The silver thread of their bond pulses with energy as Alter draws closer, and he can see other pack members beginning to murmur among themselves. This is unprecedented, their alpha, their future leader, destined to mate with the rarest Omega their kind has produced in generations. The political implications alone are staggering. Such a union would elevate the Black Forest pack above every other werewolf community on the continent. But as Alter reaches the edge of the inner circle, as he prepares to step forward and accept whatever fate the moon goddess has decreed, Karos does something that sends shockwaves through the assembled pack. He spits. The saliva lands at Alter's feet, a deliberate and unmistakable insult delivered with the kind of casual cruelty that only those born to power can manage. The gesture is so unexpected, so utterly outside the bounds of sacred ceremony, that for a moment the entire grove falls into stunned silence. An Omega? Karos's voice booms across the clearing, loud enough for every wolf present to hear. Each word hits Alter like a physical blow, more devastating than any wound he's ever suffered. This is what the moon offers me? A weak creature who doesn't even have the basic dignity to submit properly to alpha authority. The world seems to slow as Alter watches Karos reach up and grasp the silver thread that connects them. His face is hard, contemptuous, as if the bond between them is nothing more than an inconvenience to be disposed of. But it's what he says next that truly destroys everything Alter thought he knew about his place in the world. I will not dirty my bloodline with a weak creature who cannot even bow his head before superior strength. Karos declares, his voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who has never been denied anything he truly wanted. Let his moon whisper pheromones scatter on the wind. I reject this bond, and I reject him. With one sharp, deliberate motion, he tears the sacred thread apart and casts the broken pieces into the fire. The flames consume them greedily, leaving nothing but ash and the acrid smell of burned magic. The severing of a fated bond is considered one of the most heinous acts possible in werewolf society, a violation of the natural order that brings shame upon both participants and their entire bloodlines. But it's clear that Karos feels no shame. If anything, he looks satisfied, as if he's just solved an annoying problem through decisive action. The pain that follows is unlike anything Alter has ever experienced. It's not just physical agony, though that's certainly part of it. The severing of a fated bond feels like having half your soul torn away, leaving jagged edges that burn with every breath. It's the spiritual devastation that's truly unbearable, the sudden knowledge that the fundamental connection he was born to share with another being has been not just broken but actively rejected. But worse than even the pain is the humiliation. Through the pack link, he can feel the shock and pity of the gathered wolves, their emotions washing over him in waves that threaten to drown him. Some whisper among themselves, others stare openly at his shame. A few of the younger alphas actually laugh, cruel sounds that cut through the night air like blades. The moon whisper Omega, rejected. Someone says, their voice carrying clearly in the shocked silence. I guess even the rarest gifts mean nothing if the bearer lacks proper respect for alpha authority. His bloodline must be tainted somehow, another voice adds. How else could the moon goddess make such an obvious mistake? But the cruelest cut comes from Kairos himself, who steps closer to Alter with the predatory grace of a wolf circling wounded prey. "You stand there with your head high like you have some right to dignity," he says, his voice pitched low but still audible to the entire gathering. "You've spent years refusing proper alphas, thinking your rare pheromones make you too good to submit. Well, now you know what I think of your precious gift." He gestures dismissively at Alter's silver hair, his ice-blue eyes, the unconscious grace that has made him the target of so much unwanted attention over the years. "Beauty without submission is worthless. Power without proper respect is an abomination. You're nothing but a defective Omega who thinks he's better than his betters." The pack elder steps forward, his ancient face grave with the weight of what has just occurred. "Alter Lien," he says, and his voice carries both sorrow and inevitability. "You have been rejected by your fated mate in sacred ceremony. By the old laws, you are no longer welcome in this territory. You have 1 hour to gather your possessions and leave our lands, never to return." But it doesn't end there. As word of his rejection spreads through the assembled pack, Alter finds himself facing a level of hostility that goes far beyond the simple enforcement of ancient law. Pack members who have always resented his independence, his refusal to play the submissive Omega role they expected, see his rejection as vindication of their prejudices. They don't wait for him to leave voluntarily. A group of younger alphas, emboldened by their leader's example and eager to prove their loyalty to Kairos, surround him before he can make his way out of the sacred grove. The first blow catches him across the face, splitting his lip and sending him staggering. The second drives into his ribs, forcing the air from his lungs in a painful gasp. "Arrogant Omega," one of them snarls as he strikes. "Think you're too good for alpha attention? This is what happens to Omegas who forget their place. Maybe a few bruises will teach you some humility." Another adds, his fist connecting with Alter's stomach. "Should have learned to bow properly when you had the chance." They don't stop until Alter is on his knees, blood running from his nose and mouth, his body screaming with pain. Through it all, Kairos watches with cold satisfaction, as if Alter's suffering is exactly what he deserves for the crime of existing without proper submission. "Let this be a lesson to all," Kairos announces as the beating finally ends. "This is what happens to those who think they can stand as equals with their superiors. The moon goddess shows her displeasure through my rejection, and justice is served through proper correction." By the time Alter manages to drag himself away from the sacred grove, the storm that has been building all evening finally breaks. Rain falls in sheets, turning the forest paths to mud and making every step a struggle. His few possessions are quickly soaked through, and the injuries from his beating make each movement agony. But perhaps worst of all is the spiritual desolation that comes with being cut off from the pack link, the sudden silence where once there had been the comforting presence of his community. He has nowhere to go. The territory borders are clearly marked, and crossing them means entering the neutral zone's wildlands where exiled wolves go to die, where the law of the pack gives way to the brutal reality of survival of the fittest. But staying means facing more violence, more humiliation, more systematic destruction of everything he once was. The choice, such as it is no choice at all. Alter stumbles through the storm for hours, following deer paths and half-remembered hunters' trails deeper into the wilderness than he has ever been before. The rain soaks through his clothes and chills him to the bone, but he keeps moving, driven by the knowledge that stopping means giving up, and giving up means death. By dawn, he has crossed into the neutral territories, those vast expanses of untamed forest that exist between the various pack lands and the kingdoms of men. Here, the old laws hold no sway, and strength is the only currency that matters. It's a place where exiled wolves sometimes band together in savage communities built on mutual desperation, where monsters both human and otherwise prey on the weak and unwary. But Alter's luck, already catastrophically bad, is about to get worse. The storm has washed away his scent trail and left him disoriented, and by the time the sun rises, he realizes he has no idea where he is or how to find food, shelter, or safety. His injuries from the beating are worse than he initially thought, and without proper medical attention, infection is a real possibility. It's on his third day in the wilderness, weak from hunger and barely able to walk, that the hunters find him. They're not wolves. These men who emerge from the underbrush like predators who have been tracking him for hours. They're humans, but of a particular type, the kind who make their living capturing and selling supernatural creatures to buyers who prefer not to ask too many questions about how their merchandise was acquired. Slave traders, in the bluntest terms, though they prefer euphemisms like exotic procurement specialists or rare creature merchants. Well, the leader says as his men surround the exhausted altar. What do we have here? A werewolf, and not just any werewolf. Look at that coloring, boys. You don't see silver fur like that every day. Is he injured? One of the others asks, noting the bruises and cuts that still mark Alter's face and body. Nothing that won't heal. The leader replies with the casual indifference of someone who has seen far worse. And look at those pheromones. Even weak and hurt, he's putting out a scent that's making my teeth ache. This one's going to bring a premium price at market. They don't hurt him beyond what's necessary to subdue and transport him. After all, damaged goods bring lower prices, and they're professionals with reputations to maintain. But the iron shackles they clamp around his wrists and ankles burn against his skin, and the cage they load him into for transport is barely large enough for him to lie down. The journey to the market takes 2 days. 2 days during which Alter has plenty of time to contemplate how far he has fallen. A week ago, he had been a respected member of his pack, sought after by alphas from across the continent for his rare gifts. Now he's cargo, a piece of merchandise to be sold to the highest bidder with no more thought given to his wishes or well-being than would be accorded to a particularly valuable horse. The market itself is a revelation in human depravity that Alter could never have imagined. Set up in the ruins of an ancient amphitheater deep in the contested borderlands, it caters to buyers from across the known world who come seeking creatures and artifacts that can't be acquired through legal means. Vampires browse for rare blood types, fey nobles examine captured sprites for their garden collections, and wealthy humans bid on everything from phoenix feathers to captured elementals. And in the center of it all, displayed on raised platforms like prize livestock, are the sentient beings deemed too valuable to kill but too dangerous to leave free. Werewolves, certainly, but also captured merfolk in enchanted tanks, bound demons seething with impotent rage, and other creatures whose very existence challenges the boundaries between myth and reality. Alter is placed on one of the premium platforms, his silver hair and ice-blue eyes drawing immediate attention from potential buyers. The auction master, a thin man with the calculating eyes of someone who has spent his life appraising the value of suffering, wastes no time in highlighting his most valuable features. Lot 17. The man announces to the gathered crowd. A werewolf omega of the extremely rare moon whisper variety. Note the distinctive silver coloring and the quality of the pheromones even in his current distressed state. Bidding starts at 500 gold imperial, and gentlemen, I guarantee you'll never see another like him. The bidding is spirited but brief. Most of the potential buyers are put off by the high starting price, and others seem more interested in lots that come with fewer complications. Werewolves, even omegas, have a reputation for being difficult to control, and moon whisper omegas in particular are known for their strong wills and tendency to resist psychological breaking. It's when the bidding begins to slow, when it looks like Alter might be sold to a sweaty human merchant who keeps licking his lips in a way that makes Alter's skin crawl, that a new voice enters the auction. 1,000 gold imperial. The voice cuts through the noise of the market like a blade, carrying an authority that makes every conversation stop and every head turn. The speaker is tall and lean, dressed in clothes that manage to be both elegant and practical, but it's his eyes that capture immediate attention. They're silver, like polished metal heated to the point of melting, and they seem to glow with an inner fire that speaks of power beyond anything merely human. Valeron, someone whispers, and the name carries through the crowd like wildfire. Even Alter, isolated as he has been, knows the stories. The last dragon lord, the ancient being who controls the neutral territories between the human kingdoms and the supernatural realms. He who has lived since before the current age began, who commands respect from vampires and fear from angels, who has never once been known to participate in the slave markets that flourish in the shadows of civilized society. Sir, the auction master says, and his voice carries a deference that he has shown to no other buyer. We're honored by your presence, but perhaps you'd be interested in lot 23? The fire elemental has already been partially bound and would be much easier to. I want the wolf, Vale says simply, and his silver eyes never leave Alter's face. The moon whisper Omega. Name your price. The bidding stands at 600 gold imperial from Master Cornelius. The auction master says quickly. If you'd like to. 1,000 gold imperial. Vale repeats, and this time there's something in his voice that makes it clear the discussion is over. Final offer. The silence that follows is absolute. 1,000 gold imperial is more than most people see in a lifetime, enough to buy a small kingdom or fund a war. For a single Omega, no matter how rare, it's an astronomical sum that speaks either of vast wealth or complete madness. Sold. The auction master says quickly, before anyone can recover enough to object. Lot 17 to Lord Valeron for 1,000 gold imperial. As the transaction is completed and ownership papers change hands, Alter finds himself studying his new owner with a mixture of curiosity and resignation. Valeron moves with the fluid grace of a predator, but there's something different about him, something that sets him apart from every other powerful being Alter has encountered. Where Kairos projected dominance through aggression and intimidation, Vale's authority seems to come from a deeper source, as if he's so secure in his power that he doesn't need to constantly prove it. Come, Vale says once the legal formalities are complete, and his voice is neither cruel nor kind, simply matter of fact. We have a long journey ahead of us. The journey to Vale's domain takes them deep into the heart of the neutral territories, through landscapes that seem to exist outside the normal flow of time and space. They travel not by horse or carriage, but by methods that Alter doesn't fully understand. One moment they're walking through a forest that looks perfectly ordinary. The next they're stepping through what appears to be a doorway carved from solidified shadow into a realm where the very air hums with ancient magic. The borderlands. Vale explains when he notices Alter's confusion. Spaces that exist between the mortal realm and others. Useful for those who prefer their privacy. They don't speak much during the journey. Vale seems content to walk in silence, occasionally pausing to examine something that Alter can't see or to make subtle adjustments to their path for reasons that aren't immediately apparent. For his part, Alter is still too shocked by the rapid transformation of his circumstances to engage in casual conversation with the being who now, legally and practically, owns him. But as they travel, Alter begins to notice things about his new owner that don't fit the stories he's heard. Vale moves through the wilderness with the easy confidence of someone who belongs here, but he also shows a consideration for the environment that speaks of genuine respect rather than mere practical knowledge. When they stop to rest, he shares his food without being asked and ensures that Alter has adequate shelter without making a show of his generosity. Most surprisingly, he makes no attempt to assert dominance in the way that every other powerful being in Alter's experience has done. There are no threats, no demonstrations of superior strength, no casual cruelties designed to establish the hierarchy between owner and property. Vale treats him with the same neutral courtesy he might show to a traveling companion, and somehow that's more unsettling than outright hostility would be. You're wondering why I bought you, Vale says on their second day of travel, speaking for the first time since they left the market. The thought had occurred to me, Alter replies carefully. He has learned to be cautious with his words around those who hold power over him, but something about Vale's demeanor invites honesty. I collect rare things, Vale says simply. Books, artifacts, creatures. Usually not people, but your particular combination of gifts intrigued me. Moon whisper pheromones appear perhaps once in a generation, and never in an Omega with such obvious strength of will. Strength of will, Alter repeats, and he can't keep the bitterness from his voice. Is that what you call being rejected by my fated mate and beaten by my former pack? I call it surviving, Vale says, and for the first time, there's something approaching warmth in his voice. You were publicly humiliated, physically assaulted, and exiled from everything you've ever known. Yet here you are, walking through the wilderness with your head held high, asking direct questions instead of cowering in fear. Most Omegas in your position would have broken already. The observation catches Alter off guard. In all the chaos of recent events, he hasn't had time to consider his own responses, to think about what his behavior might reveal about his character. He has simply been reacting, trying to survive from one moment to the next without thought for anything beyond immediate necessity. What happens now? He asks, because the question has been burning in his mind since the moment Vale's bid was accepted. Now you serve, Vale says matter-of-factly. I have need of an assistant, someone to help manage my household and tend to the various creatures under my protection. Your empathic abilities and natural healing instincts make you well suited for such work. And if I refuse, then you're free to leave, Vale says, and his tone suggests he means it. I'm not in the habit of keeping unwilling servants, but consider your alternatives carefully. The neutral territories are dangerous for lone omegas, and your former pack has made it clear you're not welcome there. It's not really a choice, and they both know it. But there's something in the way Vale presents it, in his acknowledgement of Alter's right to refuse, that makes the arrangement feel less like slavery and more like a practical necessity. I'll serve, Alter says finally, but I won't be broken. I won't pretend to be something I'm not just to make you more comfortable. Good, Vale replies, and there's unmistakable approval in his voice. Broken things are of no use to anyone, least of all themselves. Vale's domain, when they finally reach it, is unlike anything Alter has ever seen. Built into the side of a mountain that rises impossibly tall into cloudless skies, the structure seems to be part natural formation and part deliberate construction. Towers carved from living stones spiral upward like frozen flames, connected by bridges that span vast chasms and courtyards that exist on multiple levels simultaneously. But it's not just the architecture that takes Alter's breath away. The entire complex pulses with life and magic in ways that speak of careful cultivation over centuries. Gardens cascade down terraced slopes in defiance of the harsh mountain climate, filled with plants that bloom in colors that shouldn't exist and give off scents that trigger memories of places he's never been. Water flows in impossible patterns, sometimes flowing uphill or forming spirals that hang in midair without any visible support. Welcome to Drakmore, Vale says as they approach the main entrance, massive doors carved with scenes that seem to move when viewed peripherally. Your new home, for as long as you choose to stay. Inside, the fortress is even more impressive. The halls are vast but warm, filled with tapestries and artwork that speak of cultures from across the known world, and quite a few that probably exist only in legend. Libraries stretch as far as the eye can see, their shelves lined with books in languages Alter doesn't recognize. Workshops and laboratories fill entire wings, devoted to pursuits that push the boundaries of magic and science alike. But most impressive of all are the inhabitants. Alter expected to find a household of dragons, or perhaps human servants kept in various states of servitude. Instead, he encounters a diverse collection of creatures that seem to have found refuge here. Scholars pursuing research that wouldn't be welcome in the outside world, artists working on projects that challenge conventional understanding, healers developing techniques that blur the line between medicine and magic. Your quarters are in the East Wing, Vale says, leading him through corridors lined with paintings that definitely move when he's not looking directly at them. A bedroom, a sitting area, and a small study where you can work on your assigned projects. Simple but comfortable. The rooms are anything but simple. The bedroom is larger than any space Alter has ever had to himself, with a bed that looks like it could accommodate several people and windows that offer breathtaking views of the mountain valleys below. The sitting area is furnished with comfortable chairs and a fireplace that crackles with warmth despite the lack of any visible fuel. The study contains a desk, bookshelves, and writing materials that look expensive enough to feed a family for months. This is too much, Alter says, overwhelmed by the luxury after days of traveling and weeks of uncertainty. It's adequate, Vale replies dismissively. You'll find clothes in the wardrobe, and meals are served in the main hall at sunset. Your duties will begin tomorrow. What exactly will my duties involve? Alter asks as Vale prepares to leave. Tending to the injured, primarily. I maintain something of a sanctuary here for creatures that have been hurt or displaced by the various conflicts that plague our world. Your natural empathy and healing abilities make you well-suited for such work. Vale pauses at the door. There are also research projects that could benefit from your insights, correspondence to maintain with various contacts across the realms, and the general administration of a household that operates according to principles most of the outside world would find incomprehensible. And the entertainment you mentioned at the market? Vale turns back, that enigmatic expression playing at his lips again. I have lived for over 2,000 years, Alter. Do you know how difficult it becomes to find anything that holds your interest after the first few centuries? Most beings are so predictable, so limited in their perspectives. But you, he studies Alter's face with those piercing silver eyes. You might be different. Left alone in his new quarters, Alter takes stock of his situation with the dispassionate assessment that has become second nature since his exile. A month ago, he had been a respected member of his pack with a secure place in the world, even if it wasn't a particularly comfortable one. 2 weeks ago, he had been a broken exile with no hope and no future. Now he's the property of a dragon lord, living in luxury he never could have imagined, with work that sounds genuinely interesting and challenging. It should feel like a dramatic improvement, and in many ways it does. But there's also an undercurrent of uncertainty that he can't quite shake. Vale has been nothing but courteous, even kind in his own distant way. But he's still a dragon, a creature whose very nature is antithetical to everything Alter has been taught about the proper relationship between predator and prey. Can he really trust someone whose motivations are so alien to his own understanding of the world? The answer comes over the following days as Alter settles into his new life and begins to understand what Vale has created here. The work is every bit as engaging as promised. Injured creatures from across the magical spectrum arrive regularly, some brought by Vale himself, others making their way to Drakmor through networks of communication that span multiple realms. Alter finds that his empathic abilities, enhanced by his Moon Whisper heritage, allow him to understand and comfort beings that other healers can't even communicate with. There's the young phoenix who arrived with one wing completely shattered, traumatized by hunters who wanted to harvest his feathers for magical components. Alter spends hours sitting beside his recovery nest, projecting feelings of safety and acceptance until the creature finally allows him close enough to tend the physical injuries. There's the water elemental who was poisoned by industrial runoff from a human factory, her essence clouded with toxins that conventional medicine can't address. Alter discovers that his Moon Whisper pheromones, when properly focused, can help purify magical corruption in ways that no one had previously understood. Most challenging of all is the young dragon who arrives in the 3rd week of Alter's residence. Barely more than a hatchling, but already marked by the kind of psychological trauma that comes from witnessing the destruction of everything he's ever known. The little one won't speak, won't eat, won't even fully materialize from his half-shifted state that's neither fully human nor fully dragon. His clan was wiped out by vampire hunters 3 months ago, Vale explains as they watch the hatchling huddle in the corner of his specially prepared room. He's the only survivor, and the guilt is eating him alive. I've tried everything I can think of, but he won't respond to any form of comfort or communication. Alter studies the trembling figure with the careful assessment he's learned to apply to all his patients. He's not just grieving, he says finally. He's terrified. Survivor's guilt is part of it, but there's something else. He thinks that if he allows himself to be happy, to heal, to move forward, it means he's betraying the memory of his family. How do you address something like that? Very carefully, Alter says, and with a lot of patience. It takes weeks of gentle persistence, but gradually Alter manages to reach the traumatized hatchling. He starts by simply sitting nearby, not trying to interact or offer comfort, just being present and projecting the kind of calm acceptance that his Moon Whisper heritage makes possible. Slowly, the little dragon begins to relax in his presence, and eventually he works up the courage to approach. The breakthrough comes when Alter shares his own story of loss and rejection, speaking quietly about the night his fated mate cast him aside and his pack turned against him. He talks about the guilt he felt for not being stronger, for not being the kind of Omega that Kairos wanted, for somehow failing to live up to the expectations that came with his rare gifts. But I learned something important, Alter tells the hatchling as they sit together in the recovery room, the little dragon finally allowing himself to be held. Surviving doesn't mean you've forgotten those you've lost. Living doesn't mean you don't miss them. Healing doesn't mean you don't carry scars. It just means you choose to keep going in spite of the pain. The little dragon's first words, when they finally come, are barely a whisper. Will it always hurt this much? No, Alter says honestly. The hurt will change, become different, become something you can carry instead of something that carries you. But it will never completely go away, and that's okay. The people we love leave marks on our souls, and those marks are proof that they mattered. Watching this interaction from the doorway, Vale feels something stir in his chest that he hasn't experienced in centuries. A warmth that has nothing to do with his draconic nature and everything to do with witnessing genuine compassion in action. Alter's ability to reach the traumatized hatchling isn't just about his rare pheromones or his natural empathy. It's about his willingness to share his own pain in service of healing someone else's, to offer understanding born from personal experience with loss and rejection. As autumn turns to winter, Vale finds himself spending more and more time in Alter's company. It starts professionally, checking on the progress of various patients, discussing treatment approaches, reviewing the research projects that have become an important part of Drakmore's mission. But gradually, their conversations begin to range beyond the purely practical. They discuss philosophy while tending to injured creatures, debate the ethics of magic while cataloging ancient artifacts, share stories of their respective pasts while working side by side in comfortable silence. Vale discovers that Alter possesses not just intelligence but wisdom, the kind of deep understanding that can only come from genuine suffering thoughtfully processed. You don't seem like the dragons from the old stories, Alter tells him one evening as they work together in the main library, organizing a collection of texts that date back to the founding of the current age. What did the old stories say about dragons? Vale asks without looking up from his cataloging. That they were proud and greedy, obsessed with hoarding treasure and demanding tribute from lesser beings. That they saw other creatures as either threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. Some were, Vale says matter-of-factly. Some still are, probably. But like any species, we're not all identical. My interest has always been in preservation rather than accumulation knowledge, beauty, life itself. What good is treasure if there's no one left to appreciate it? Is that why you created this place? To preserve things? Partly. Vale sets down the book he's been examining and looks directly at Alter. I've lived through 3 ages of the world, seen civilizations rise and fall, watched species go extinct and magic itself change in fundamental ways. Someone needs to remember, to keep the knowledge alive for whatever comes next. That sounds lonely, Alter observes, and there's genuine sympathy in his voice. It has been, Vale admits, and there's something vulnerable in his admission that makes Alter look at him more closely. Until recently, the words hang in the air between them, carrying implications that neither is quite ready to address directly. But the moment marks a shift in their relationship, a recognition that what's growing between them goes beyond the simple arrangement of master and servant. It's during one of winter's worst storms that everything changes between them. Alter has been working late in the sanctuary, tending to a group of injured sprites who require almost constant attention during their recovery period. When he finally finishes and makes his way back to his quarters, he's exhausted enough that he doesn't immediately notice the figure slumped against the wall outside his door. Vale is unconscious. His normally perfect posture collapsed into something that speaks of severe injury or illness. There's blood seeping through his clothes, and his breathing is shallow and irregular. But most concerning is the way his skin seems to flicker between human appearance and something that hints at scales, as if his control over his shape is failing. Vale! Alter drops to his knees beside the Dragon Lord, his hands moving automatically to check for injuries. What happened? Are you hurt? Hunters. Vale manages to whisper, his silver eyes struggling to focus. Found one of the sanctuary entrances. Had to discourage them from exploring further. Up close, Alter can see that Vale's injuries are worse than they initially appeared. There are deep gashes across his chest and arms, and the smell of silver poisoning hangs around him like a toxic cloud. Dragon hunters, like those who target werewolves, have learned to use weapons specifically designed to cause maximum damage to supernatural creatures. Come on, Alter says, slipping his arms around Vale's waist to support him. Let's get you inside. You need medical attention. I'll heal, Vale protests weakly, but he doesn't resist as Alter helps him into the sitting room and settles him into one of the comfortable chairs. Dragons always heal, given time. Not if you've been poisoned with silver, Alter says firmly, already moving to gather medical supplies. And definitely not if you collapse from blood loss first. Treating a dragon's injuries proves to be unlike anything Alter has experienced before. The wounds are deep and complex, and the silver poisoning has created a systemic toxicity that's preventing Vale's natural healing abilities from functioning properly. But Alter's Moon Whisper heritage gives him insights into purification magic that he's never had occasion to use, and his empathic connection allows him to understand exactly how the poison is moving through Vale's system. The treatment is delicate work, made more difficult by the way Vale's form keeps shifting between human and dragon characteristics as his control wavers. But Alter's hands are steady, his touch gentle, and gradually he manages to extract the silver particles and neutralize the toxins. The moment the last traces of poison are removed, Vale's natural healing begins to kick in, the torn flesh knitting itself back together with visible speed. There, Alter says, sitting back with relief. That should do it. How do you feel? Better, Vale says, and indeed, color is already returning to his pale features. Much better. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, Alter says, beginning to clean up the medical supplies. Anyone would have. No, Vale interrupts, his hand catching Alter's wrist. Not anyone. Most beings would have seen an injured dragon as an opportunity to be exploited, a chance to demand favors or concessions in exchange for aid. You simply helped. There's something in his voice that makes Alter look at him more closely. In Vale's silver eyes, he sees emotions that take his breath away, gratitude. Yes, but also something deeper, something that makes his heart race in a way that has nothing to do with fear. Vale, Alter begins, not sure what he wants to say. You're so beautiful, Vale whispers, his free hand reaching up to touch Alter's face, fingers tracing the line of his cheek with infinite gentleness. So kind, so brave. How could anyone reject you? How could anyone fail to see what I see when I look at you? The words break something open in Alter's chest, some carefully constructed wall that he's been hiding behind since his rejection. All the pain, all the loneliness, all the desperate hope that he's been trying to suppress comes rushing to the surface. Don't, he says, his voice breaking. Please don't say things like that if you don't mean them. I can't take any more rejection. I mean every word, Vale says, sitting up despite his recent injuries. Alter, these past months, having you here, working with you, watching you heal others with such compassion, it's been the happiest I've been in centuries. You've brought light into a life that had grown cold with too much solitude. I'm just a rejected Omega, Alter protests. I'm nobody special. You're everything, Vale interrupts, his hands framing Alter's face. You're intelligent and compassionate and stronger than you know. You're curious about the world, passionate about your work, gentle with every creature you encounter. You're exactly what I never knew I was looking for. The kiss that follows is soft and tentative, as if Vale is afraid that Alter might pull away. But instead of retreating, Alter leans into the touch, his hands coming up to rest on the dragon's chest. He can feel Vale's heartbeat beneath his palms, strong and steady and utterly alive. The kiss deepens, becoming more urgent, more desperate, as months of unspoken attraction finally find their voice. When they finally break apart, both of them are breathing hard, their faces flushed with desire and emotion. I love you, Vale says, the words coming out in a rush as if he's afraid that hesitation might rob him of courage. I know it's complicated. I know we come from different worlds, but I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just appreciation or professional respect. I love you, Alter. I love your mind, your heart, your courage, your kindness. I love the way you make me feel alive again after so many years of just existing. I love you too, Alter whispers, tears streaming down his face. I tried not to. I tried to tell myself it was just gratitude or dependency, but I can't deny it anymore. You've given me everything. A home, a purpose, respect, affection. You've made me feel valuable again when I thought I was worthless. You were never worthless, Vale says fiercely. Your pack was blind. Your former mate was a fool. And anyone who couldn't see your worth deserves nothing but pity for their stupidity. What follows is the most beautiful night of Alter's life. Vale makes love to him with a reverence that leaves him breathless, treating his body like something precious and sacred rather than just a source of pleasure. The dragon's touch is warm against his skin, his strength carefully controlled to avoid causing harm. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered endearment reinforces the message that Alter is loved, valued, cherished. Mine, Vale whispers against his throat as they move together. My heart, my light, my chosen one. Yours, Alter agrees, arching beneath him as pleasure builds to impossible heights. Always yours. In the morning, Alter wakes in Vale's arms, feeling more complete than he ever has before. This isn't the desperate pull of a fated bond, but something he has chosen freely, something that belongs to him and Vale alone. No regrets, Vale asks, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on Alter's bare skin. None, Alter says, meaning it completely. Only wonder that it took us so long to get here. I wanted to be sure, Vale admits. You'd been hurt so badly. I didn't want to pressure you into anything you weren't ready for. And now I want to spend every remaining day of my very long life showing you how much you mean to me. Their relationship transforms from that point forward. They're still healer and patron during working hours, but in private, they're lovers and partners. Vale shows Alter wonders he had never imagined, secret chambers filled with treasures from across the ages, magical artifacts that respond to his touch, knowledge that has been hidden from the world for generations. But more than that, he shows Alter that he is worthy of love exactly as he is, not stronger, not different, not improved in any way, just himself. Spring brings new challenges and new joys to their relationship. Alter's heat cycle, delayed by the trauma of his rejection and exile, finally returns with an intensity that takes them both by surprise. For 3 days, he burns with need and desire, his moon whisper pheromones filling the air with scents that drive every alpha within miles to distraction. But Vale doesn't take advantage of his vulnerable state. Instead, he tends to Alter with the same gentle care he would show to any patient, bringing him food and water, cool cloths for his burning skin, and most importantly, his constant presence and protection. You could claim me, Alter says on the second night, his mind hazy with heat fever but still clear enough to understand the restraint Vale is showing. I'm in heat, willing, and we love each other. Most alphas would see this as the perfect opportunity. I'm not most alphas, Vale says, wringing out another cool cloth. And when we bond completely, I want it to be because you choose it with a clear mind, not because your biology is making the decision for you. When, not if. Vale pauses in his ministrations, meeting Alter's eyes. I have lived for over 2,000 years, and I have never felt for anyone what I feel for you. If you'll have me, I want to spend whatever time remains to me making you happy. When the heat finally breaks, Alter feels different. Not just physically, but emotionally. The experience of being cared for so tenderly during his most vulnerable time has created a bond between them that goes beyond even love. It's a foundation of trust so deep that he knows, with absolute certainty, that Vale will never hurt him intentionally. It's a few weeks later that Alter makes a discovery that changes everything. He's pregnant. The realization comes gradually at first, a subtle change in his scent that Vale notices before he does, a sensitivity to certain foods that he initially attributes to stress, a fatigue that seems disproportionate to his actual activities. But when the pregnancy is confirmed by the sanctuary's medical equipment, the implications hit them both like thunderbolts. Dragon-werewolf hybrid pregnancies are so rare as to be considered impossible by most scholars. The genetic differences between the species should make conception unlikely at best, and even if it did occur, the offspring would face challenges that neither parent could fully understand or prepare for. But rather than fear or uncertainty, Alter feels only joy. This child, conceived not through fated bonds or political necessity, but through genuine love and choice, represents everything he had given up hope of ever having. A family built on affection rather than obligation, a future that belongs to him rather than being dictated by others' expectations. Vale's reaction is even more intense. Dragons are notoriously difficult to breed, their long lifespans and solitary natures making successful reproduction a rare and precious event. The fact that Alter is carrying his child feels like a miracle, a gift beyond anything he had ever dared to hope for. "We need to prepare," Vale says, his practical nature asserting itself even as emotion threatens to overwhelm him. A proper nest, medical monitoring, security measures. Dragon births are challenging under the best of circumstances, and this pregnancy will have complications we can't predict. The nest Vale builds is nothing like the ostentatious displays of wealth that characterize most dragon hordes. Instead, it's a work of art designed for comfort and safety, soft fabrics in colors that complement Alter's silver hair, herbs and flowers chosen for their calming properties. A collection of books and artifacts selected not for their value but for their beauty and meaning. Most importantly, it's built in a chamber adjacent to their bedroom, easily accessible but separate enough to provide the privacy and security that Alter's instincts demand. The walls are lined with protective wards woven so subtly into the stone that they're barely visible, and the temperature is regulated by magic that responds to Alter's changing needs throughout the pregnancy. As Alter's condition progresses, their relationship deepens in ways they hadn't expected. The pregnancy brings out protective instincts in Vale that surprise them both with their intensity, while Alter discovers reserves of strength and confidence that his old pack would have found impossible to believe. "I never thought I could be this happy," Alter tells Vale one evening as they sit together in the nest, Vale's hands resting protectively on his growing belly. "I spent so many years thinking that my worth was tied to whether others accepted me, whether I could fit into the roles they expected me to play. But this, us, it's something that belongs to us alone. You were always worthy," Vale says, pressing a gentle kiss to his temple. "Your pack's blindness doesn't change that, any more than their acceptance would have made you valuable. You are who you are regardless of what others think." The birth, when it finally comes, is both easier and more difficult than they had anticipated. The actual delivery proceeds smoothly, Alter's werewolf healing and Vale's magical assistance combining to minimize complications. But the child himself is unlike anything either of them had imagined. Their son is perfect in every way that matters, healthy, strong, beautiful beyond description. But he's also clearly something new, something that has never existed before in the recorded history of either species. His hair is silver like Alter's, but it seems to shimmer with an inner fire that speaks of his draconic heritage. His eyes are the pale blue of winter ice, but they glow with an intensity that suggests depths of power yet to be explored. Most remarkably, he seems to exist in a state of constant partial transformation, his small form flickering between human and something more draconic in a way that's mesmerizing rather than unsettling. When he cries, the sound carries harmonics that shouldn't be possible from human vocal cords, and when he sleeps, tiny wisps of smoke curl from his nostrils. He's magnificent, Vale breathes, cradling his son with the careful reverence reserved for the most precious things in existence. Perfect in every way. "What should we call him?" Alter asks, exhausted but radiant with joy. "Solarius," Vale says without hesitation, "for the light he brings to both our worlds." The months that follow are filled with the kinds of challenges and joys that come with raising any child, magnified by the unique circumstances of their situation. Solarius grows rapidly, his hybrid nature expressing itself in ways that require constant adaptation and learning. He demonstrates an early aptitude for magic that exceeds anything either parent possessed at his age, but he also shows the fierce independence and strong will that characterize both dragons and werewolves. Most importantly, he thrives in the environment of love and acceptance that his parents have created. Drakmor becomes not just a sanctuary for injured creatures, but a true home for a family that exists outside every traditional category, but has found its own definition of belonging. It's when Solarius is 6 months old that their peaceful existence is shattered by the arrival of visitors who bring unwelcome reminders of Alter's past. The delegation from the Black Forest Pack arrives without warning, their presence detected by Drakmor's magical defenses only moments before they appear at the main gates. They come not as raiders or invaders, but as official representatives of their community, bearing the ceremonial banners and formal robes that mark them as envoys on a mission of the highest importance. At their head stands Kairos himself, looking every inch the successful alpha he has become in the months since Alter's exile. His dark hair is longer now, worn in the traditional style of a fully invested pack leader, and his clothes speak of wealth and influence that has grown substantially since their last encounter. But there's something different about his bearing, something that suggests the absolute confidence he once projected has been tempered by experiences that have taught him the limits of his own power. Behind him stand the pack elders and several other prominent alphas, their faces set in expressions of grim determination. But it's the presence of the ancient Omega Elder, Theron Moonwhisper, that truly alarms Alter. Theron is not just any pack member. He's the keeper of their most sacred traditions, the living repository of werewolf law and custom stretching back thousands of years. His presence suggests that this is not a casual visit or a simple diplomatic mission. Alter Lien, Kairos says when the delegation is admitted to Drakmor's main hall, and his voice carries the formal tone reserved for the most serious pack business. You stand accused of theft of the most sacred kind. You have taken something that belongs to the Black Forest Pack by right of blood and ancient law. I have taken nothing that wasn't freely given, Alter replies, though his heart is racing with the implications of their presence. He stands beside Vale in the Great Hall, baby Solarius sleeping peacefully in his arms, completely unaware of the storm gathering around him. The child, Elder Theron says, his ancient voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. The offspring of a Moon Whisper Omega belongs to the pack that birthed him, regardless of the circumstances of his conception. This is law that predates kingdoms, that supersedes all other claims. He is my son, Vale says, his voice carrying undertones of power that make the very air around them tremble. Born of love between chosen mates, conceived in freedom, brought into this world surrounded by those who will cherish and protect him. No law supersedes the rights of a parent to their child. Draconic law may differ, Kairos says, and there's something almost like regret in his voice. But werewolf law is clear. A Moon Whisper bloodline is too precious to be lost to another species. The child must be returned to his people, to be raised among those who can properly nurture his gifts. His people? Alter's voice carries a heat that makes several of the pack members step back involuntarily. You rejected me, remember? You cast me out, called me unworthy, allowed your followers to beat me bloody before driving me into exile. What claim do you have to my child? The claim of blood, Elder Theron says implacably. The claim of heritage. The claim of responsibility to preserve the gifts of the moon goddess for future generations. And what of the claim of love? Vale asks, his silver eyes beginning to glow with the inner fire that suggests his human form is merely a convenience. What of the claim of those who will raise him with acceptance rather than prejudice? Who will teach him that his worth comes from who he chooses to be rather than what others expect him to become? The argument might have escalated into violence, but Alter steps forward before anyone can draw weapons or invoke magic. In his arms, Solarius has awakened, his ice-blue eyes bright with curiosity as he studies the strangers who have invaded his home. Look at him, Alter says quietly, and something in his voice makes everyone in the hall fall silent. Really look at him. He's not just werewolf and he's not just dragon. He's something new, something that has never existed before. Do you really think your traditional methods of raising Moon Whisper Omegas will serve a child who can breathe smoke and whose eyes glow with inner fire? We will adapt, Kairos says, but there's uncertainty in his voice now. We will learn what we need to learn. Will you? Alter asks. Will you accept that he might choose a path different from what you plan for him? Will you love him if he decides that pack hierarchy and traditional roles don't suit him? Will you stand by him if he falls in love with someone you don't approve of? The questions hang in the air like accusations, and Alter can see their impact in the faces of the delegation. These are not theoretical concerns. They're pointed reminders of exactly how the Black Forest Pack treated Alter himself when he failed to meet their expectations. You rejected me, Alter continues, his voice gaining strength with each word. You decided I was unworthy of acceptance, unworthy of the bond the moon goddess herself decreed. But I survived. I found love, real love, with someone who values me for who I am rather than what I can provide. I built a family based on choice rather than obligation. And now you want to take my child and raise him in the same system that nearly destroyed me. We made mistakes, Kairos admits, and for the first time since his arrival, his formal composure cracks slightly. I made mistakes. The rejection. It should not have happened the way it did. No, it shouldn't have, Alter agrees. But it did happen, and the consequences of that choice are mine to live with, just as this choice is mine to make. He looks down at Solarius, who is studying the assembled pack members with the intense curiosity that characterizes very young children. When the baby's gaze falls on Kairos, he makes a small sound of interest, reaching out with one tiny hand as if trying to touch something only he can see. He's beautiful, Kairos says quietly, and there's genuine wonder in his voice. I can sense his power even now, the potential that lies dormant in his bloodline. With proper training, proper guidance, he'll become exactly what you want him to become, Alter finishes. A moon whisper Omega raised to serve the pack's needs rather than his own desires. A tool to be used for the greater good rather than a person with his own dreams and aspirations. That's not, Kairos begins, but Alter cuts him off. Isn't it? Look me in the eyes and tell me that's not exactly what you have planned for him. Tell me you see him as more than just a resource to be developed. The silence that follows is answer enough. Kairos's eyes drop, unable to meet Alter's direct gaze, and several of the other pack members shift uncomfortably as they confront the implications of their mission. I thought so, Alter says sadly. You haven't changed at all, have you? You're still the same alpha who values power over compassion, strategy over love, tradition over individual happiness. And what will you give him? Elder Theron demands, his ancient voice sharp with frustration. What can a dragon's fortress provide that a werewolf pack cannot? Freedom, Alter says simply. The freedom to discover who he is without being told who he should be. The freedom to make his own choices about his future. The freedom to be loved unconditionally rather than valued conditionally. As if responding to his father's words, Solarius chooses that moment to demonstrate one of his developing abilities. The baby's form flickers, shifting seamlessly between his normal appearance and something more draconic scales appearing along his arms. His eyes taking on a more reptilian cast, tiny wings unfurling from his shoulders like gossamer memories of ancient flight. The effect on the pack delegation is immediate and profound. Several of them step back involuntarily, their faces showing a mixture of awe and fear that speaks to deep-seated prejudices about creatures that exist outside traditional categories. Even Kairos, for all his political sophistication, can't quite hide his unease at witnessing such a display of hybrid nature. You see, Alter asks quietly, he's not what you expected, is he? He's not what your laws and traditions prepared you for. You want to claim him because of his werewolf heritage, but you're afraid of the dragon in him. How do you plan to raise a child you're frightened of? We would learn to accept, Kairos begins, but the words sound hollow even to his own ears. Would you? Vale asks, speaking for the first time since the demonstration began. Would you really? Or would you try to suppress the parts of him that make you uncomfortable, to force him into a mold that doesn't fit his true nature? The question strikes at the heart of the pack's dilemma. Their laws demand that they claim Solarius based on his Moon Whisper heritage, but their instincts rebel against accepting a child whose very existence challenges their understanding of what werewolves should be. We have raised Moon Whisper Omegas for generations, Elder Theron says, but his voice lacks its earlier conviction. We know how to nurture such gifts. Do you? Alter challenges. Because your track record with me suggests otherwise. You raised me according to your traditions, taught me to value your customs, encouraged me to take pride in my heritage. And the moment I failed to fit perfectly into your expectations, you cast me aside without a second thought. The accusation hangs in the air like a sword, cutting through the pack's attempts at justification with brutal honesty. Because the truth is undeniable, they did reject Alter, not for any failure of character or ability, but simply because he didn't conform to their image of what a Moon Whisper Omega should be. That was different, Kairos says, but the words sound desperate even to him. The circumstances were. The circumstances were that I was inconvenient, Alter interrupts. My personality, my strength of will, my refusal to simply submit without question, it all interfered with your plans for political advancement. So you disposed of me and moved on to more manageable alternatives. I was wrong, Kairos admits suddenly, the words bursting out of him like a dam breaking. About everything. About you, about what strength means, about what leadership requires. I was so focused on maintaining power that I forgot why power matters in the first place. The admission catches everyone off guard, including Alter himself. In all the time he's known Kairos, he has never heard the Alpha admit to being wrong about anything, let alone something so fundamental to his identity and worldview. I've spent every day since your exile wondering what might have been, Kairos continues, his voice thick with emotion he's clearly been suppressing for months. Wondering if I made the greatest mistake of my life when I rejected the bond between us. You did, Alter says simply, and there's no anger in his voice anymore. Just sadness for opportunities lost and wounds that can never fully heal. But the mistake wasn't rejecting me specifically. The mistake was believing that strength comes from domination rather than protection, that leadership means forcing others to conform rather than helping them flourish. I know that now, Kairos says. I've tried to change, to be the kind of leader the pack actually needs. But it's too late for us, isn't it? Too late for any kind of redemption. Alter looks at him for a long moment, studying the face of the Alpha who shaped so much of his early pain and inadvertently led him to his current happiness. It's too late for us to have what we might have had, he says finally. The bond that was broken can't be repaired, and the trust that was shattered can't be rebuilt. But it's not too late for you to become someone worthy of the position you hold. And the child? Elder Theron asks, bringing the conversation back to the matter that brought them here in the first place. The child stays with his family, Alter says firmly, with parents who chose each other out of love rather than obligation, who will raise him to value compassion over conquest, who will teach him that his worth comes from who he is rather than what others want him to be. The pack will not accept this, the elder warns. There will be consequences for defying such ancient laws. Then the pack will have to learn to live with disappointment, Vale says, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that comes from being old enough to have seen empires rise and fall. Because I will not allow my child to be taken from his home to be raised by those who have already demonstrated their inability to value what they claim to protect. The tension in the hall rises to dangerous levels as both sides prepare for a confrontation that could easily escalate into violence. But before anyone can draw weapons or invoke magic, Solarius makes another of his spontaneous demonstrations, this time reaching out toward Kairos with obvious curiosity rather than fear. The baby makes soft cooing sounds, his ice blue eyes bright with interest as he studies the Alpha who caused his father so much pain. There's no malice in his expression, no inherited resentment or instinctive hostility. He simply sees another person, another potential source of affection and attention. He doesn't know to hate you, Alter observes quietly, shifting so that Solarius can get a better look at the delegation. He doesn't understand the history between us, the politics that brought you here, the laws you're trying to invoke. He just sees potential friends. Perhaps that's how it should be, Kairos says, his voice heavy with regret. Perhaps children should be allowed to form their own opinions rather than inheriting the prejudices of their parents. Perhaps they should, Alter agrees. And perhaps that's something you could remember when you return to your pack and explain why you're going home empty-handed. The delegation stays for 3 more days, ostensibly to rest before the long journey home, but actually to observe the life that Alter and Vale have built together. They watch as the hybrid family goes about their daily routines, tending to injured creatures, conducting research, maintaining the complex magical systems that keep Drakmor functioning. Most importantly, they see how Solarius is being raised, surrounded by love and acceptance, and exposed to a diversity of creatures and ideas that no traditional pack could provide. By the time they leave, even Elder Theron has to admit that the child is thriving in ways that would be impossible within the rigid structure of pack society. Solarius is already showing signs of extraordinary intelligence and empathy, his hybrid nature allowing him to communicate with creatures that pure werewolves or dragons couldn't reach. "You were right," Karos tells Alter in their final private conversation before the delegation's departure. "About everything. About leadership, about strength, about what really matters in life. I wish I had understood these things when it might have made a difference between us." "It did make a difference," Alter says. "Just not in the way you expected. Your rejection forced me to find my own strength, to discover what I was truly capable of when I wasn't trying to fit into someone else's expectations. In a strange way, I owe you a debt of gratitude." "I don't want your gratitude," Karos says, pain evident in his voice. I want to be worthy of your respect." "Then earn it," Alter says simply. "Not from me, but from your pack. Be the leader they deserve rather than the one you think you should be. Value their happiness over your ambitions. Protect their right to choose their own paths rather than forcing them to follow yours." The pack's departure marks the end of one chapter in Alter's life and the beginning of another. No longer does he have to wonder whether his past will catch up with him, whether old obligations will interfere with his chosen family. The confrontation with Karos and the elders has provided closure in ways he didn't realize he needed. More importantly, it has proven to both him and Vale that what they've built together is strong enough to withstand external pressures. Their love isn't just a private arrangement between two individuals. It's the foundation of a new kind of family, one that could serve as a model for others who find themselves outside traditional categories. Over the following months, word of their successful resistance to pack law spreads throughout the supernatural community. Other mixed couples begin to seek them out, looking for advice on how to navigate the complex social and legal challenges that come with relationships that cross species lines. Drakmor gradually becomes not just a sanctuary for injured creatures, but a refuge for unconventional families seeking acceptance and support. Alter finds himself taking on the role of counselor and advocate, using his own experiences to help others who face rejection and exile. His Moon Whisper heritage, combined with his hard-won wisdom about survival and adaptation, makes him uniquely qualified to guide those who struggle with questions of identity and belonging. "We're building something unprecedented," Vale observes one evening as they watch Solarius play with a group of other hybrid children whose families have found refuge at Drakmor. "A community based on choice rather than biology, acceptance rather than conformity. Is that what we're doing?" Alter asks, though he can see the truth of it in the scene before them. Werewolf-vampire couples, human-fae partnerships, dragon-phoenix bonds, all of them finding ways to make their relationships work despite the opposition of their respective communities. "I think so," Vale says. "And I think our son is going to grow up in a world where love is more important than species, where families are defined by devotion rather than DNA." "That sounds like a pretty good world to live in," Alter says, leaning into Vale's embrace as they watch their child discover the joy of friendship with others who, like him, exist outside traditional categories. 2 years later, Alter stands on the highest balcony of Drakmor, holding Solarius as they watch the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Below them, the lights of their community twinkle like earthbound stars, each one representing a life that has found hope and belonging in the sanctuary they've created. Solarius is walking now, talking in a mixture of languages that includes both werewolf pack speak and draconic formal speech. His abilities continue to develop in ways that amaze and delight his parents. He can communicate with creatures that neither of them can reach, demonstrates an intuitive understanding of magic that surpasses formal training, and shows a natural leadership ability that draws others to him like moths to flame. But perhaps most importantly, he radiates the kind of confidence that can only come from being loved unconditionally. He knows, with the absolute certainty that characterizes very young children, that he is valued for who he is rather than what he might become. "Papa, look," Solarius says, pointing toward the horizon where a group of dragons are visible in the distance, their massive forms silhouetted against the evening sky. "Flying dragons. When can I fly like that?" "When you're older," Alter says, though he's not sure if the answer is accurate. Solarius's development doesn't follow the patterns of either parent species, and predicting his capabilities has proven to be an exercise in futility. "Very much older," Vale adds, joining them on the balcony. "Dragon flight is not something to be rushed. But I want to see everything from up high." Solarius protests with the logic of a 2-year-old. "I want to see the whole world." "You will," Alter promises, hugging his son closer. "Someday you'll see more of the world than either your father or I ever imagined. You'll go places and do things that haven't been invented yet. Will you come with me?" "As far as we can," Vale says, his hand resting on Alter's shoulder. "But eventually, you'll need to make your own adventures, find your own path, create your own family. I want my family to be like ours," Solarius declares with the absolute certainty that only children possess. "I want everyone to choose each other because they want to, not because they have to." Looking out over the community they've built, the families they've helped, the future they're creating for their son and others like him, Alter feels a contentment deeper than any he had ever imagined possible. The story that began with rejection and exile has become one of acceptance and belonging. The Omega who was deemed unworthy has helped create a new definition of worth. The love that was dismissed as impossible has proven to be the foundation of something unprecedented. "I love you," he tells Vale as they stand together watching their son point out interesting clouds and make plans for impossible adventures. "I love you too," Vale replies, his arm tightening around Alter's waist. "Both of you, always." This is their story, a story of rejection transformed into acceptance, exile transformed into homecoming, and fear transformed into the kind of love that makes anything possible. It began with the moon's whisper, with a rare gift that made Alter both coveted and feared. It continued through the deepest despair, when he thought he had lost everything that gave his life meaning. But it culminated in a love that was chosen rather than fated, built rather than decreed, and strengthened by every challenge it faced. And while their particular tale may be reaching its conclusion, the community they've created continues to grow and evolve. Other families are forming that don't fit traditional molds. Other couples are choosing love over convention. Other children are finding homes where their differences are celebrated rather than feared. The acceptance they've fought for spreads outward in ripples that touch lives they'll never know, changing the world one relationship at a time. In the end, that's what true strength looks like. Not the power to force others to conform, but the courage to create space for everyone to be authentically themselves. It's the recognition that love comes in many forms, that families can be built as well as born, and that the greatest victories are won not through conquest but through acceptance. This is the legacy of the Moon Whisper Omega, the ancient dragon, and the hybrid child who became their heart, a legacy of chosen love, deliberate family, and the revolutionary idea that being different isn't just acceptable, it's beautiful. They proved that sometimes the greatest gifts come in packages that don't fit conventional expectations, and that the love worth having is always the love worth fighting for.